Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to an all new episode of Let's Talk on your favorite channel, Huda TV. I'm your host, Arkham Rashid. Each culture has its own beautiful way of showing kindness and generosity to their guests. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyukrim dayfa." That whoever believes in God and the last day, then that person should be hospitable to his guests. Now we know that each culture has its unique way of showing kindness to their guests. And for this episode, we have brought you 4 guests from different cultures and different parts of the world to share their stories and how their culture shows kindness and generosity to their guests. So on tonight's episode, we will discuss the importance of showing kindness to our guests. And for that, I will start off by letting my guests introduce themselves as we usually do. So if I could start with my right, brother, if you can give us your name, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Ali Omar Al-Ghazali. I'm 20 years old, Egyptian, and a student at Al-Azhar University.
All right, Ali, I'm glad to have you on the show. Hopefully you can share with us how Egyptians treat their guests.
Inshallah, I'll try my best.
All right, brother, if we can get your name, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Ismail Charawali from Sierra Leone. I'm also a student at Al-Azhar University, and I'm doing my master's. So, yeah, that's it about me.
All right, that's
for
it.
here.
All right, Ismail, I'm glad to have you once again on Let's Talk. And we look forward to see how people from Sierra Leone treat their guests.
Sure,
inshallah.
sure. Yeah.
All right, brother on the left side, if I can get your name, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ahmed Anas Kashiri. My friends usually call me Honest, and we're all friends. I'm from the U.S., but my upbringing is Indonesian. My parents are Indonesian, basically, and I'm a student at Azhar at the moment.
Okay, so you can share 2 different cultures with us. You can share how people treat their guests in the United States and how Indonesians treat their guests.
I'll go on more on the Indonesian side because, since my parents were really Indonesian, they're migrated to America. So
Okay.
I'll just see how it works, inshallah.
All right, inshallah. Brother, if we can get your name, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa
Wa alaikum
rahmatullahi
salam.
wa barakatuh. In the name of Allah, mighty Allah, most merciful and most gracious. My name is Abdul Hakim Dawanzai, and I am from the land of hospitality. It means that I am from Afghanistan, and now I am studying at Al-Azhar University, first year of Sharia Islamiyya, and I am 24 years old.
All right, Abdul Hakim, I want to welcome you to the show. And we
Thank
look
you.
forward to see how people from Afghanistan treat their guests, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah.
And you said
No
it's
problem.
the land of hospitality, so
Yeah.
we really look forward to that now.
Yeah.
Also, dear viewers, I want to let you know that the number is on the screen. During the show, we would like you to call in and share your stories, how your culture treats their guests. So I'm going to start off by asking you, Brother Ali, that tell us, what does hospitality mean to you, and how do the Egyptian people treat their guests?
Well, hospitality is, as you said, showing kindness and friendliness to your visitors, your guests, your neighbors, and trying to entertain them, offer food to them. And a lot of people, when they think of hospitality, they only think of food. And hospitality is more than that. Hospitality starts from the moment you open the door with a smile on your face, and you make them comfortable. You tidy up your house first. You make sure it's clean and tidy. And this is something very extremely important in our culture, the Egyptian culture, is that when there is a gathering, for example in my house, then my mom would make sure that everything is on point, everything is properly clean, and sometimes it gets stressful to the mothers especially. And obviously food is a big part of being or showing hospitality, especially in the Arab culture. And this is being an Egyptian and an Arab. Even from back in the day, before Islam, even in Jahiliyyah days, the Arabs used to be very, proud of their generosity, and they took pride in their hospitality, and they used to love actually hosting guests. And they used to even write poetry about it, and And one example is, the famous generous man Hatim al-Ta'i used to be an Arab poet, and he used to also, he was well known for his generosity and hospitality, and the Prophet ﷺ praised him for that. So yeah, I think that's it.
So, what would you say? Is there a special dish you guys make when you invite people over? Or?
Not really. The Egyptian food is very simple. There's nothing, but obviously, food is important is in Egypt. So they would make sure that they make a lot of food, and most of the times, half of the food is not eating. So this is a problem. I believe a lot of the food is wasted in events or like gatherings, family gatherings, and also Egyptians exaggerate when it comes to dessert. They bring loads of dessert. So yeah, I think that's it.
How about when a guest comes to stay for a while?
It doesn't happen often in Egypt. I don't know why. Actually, Egyptians, because they care so much about being, very hospitable and very, on point, and they want the evening to be perfect and smooth. They end up not inviting other people as often because the event is very stressful. So, yeah, this is something that I don't really like. Like, for example, we would invite our, for example, family members or my cousins, my aunties, my uncles, not as often, because every time we invite them, we end up working hard and making sure that everything is perfect. So it's kind of stressful for the hosting family.
So if your aunts and uncle are watching this, then that's why they never invite us often.
I mean, my point is that we can make it more simple. Like, Egyptian culture, when it comes to hospitality, is a bit complicated. It's a bit conservative.
All right. Yeah, sure.
Egyptian food is like kushari, macarona. They're prepared to the guest. Am I right?
Not really. Kushari is more like we eat it on the streets.
The street, yeah.
It would be rude of us to offer
So
kushari.
if I go to somebody's house and they fed me kushari,
that's like they're saving money. They've been saving. They would usually would offer like rice and chicken, obviously meat, and mahshi. That's very well known
And
in Egypt.
batta.
Yeah, battas are like ducks, stuffed
Mm.
ducks. So yeah, Egyptians are, I would say, generous. Pretty much. Yeah.
But no falafel and fool when you go to somebody's house?
Not really. These are like cheap meals, like maybe for breakfast, maybe not for a proper gathering or proper family gathering.
Because usually when people think of Egyptian food, the first thing that comes to their mind is falafel and fool.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just so the viewers know that that's not the only thing Egyptians
that's
eat.
not eating like I rarely eat food and falafel at home.
Yeah.
It's very rare. Doesn't happen a lot.
All right, Ismail, what does hospitality mean to you, and how are people hospitable in your culture?
Well, actually, if you look at the context of hospitality itself, it means you have to give, what you have to people. You have to be. You have to be generous to people. I mean, you give people what actually, they deserve from you as a human. It doesn't matter whether these people are part of you, maybe a part of your family, or they come from a very far distance. What we are trying to talk about here is to make sure that you are, you accept people, you give them actually the hospitality they need, especially those who travel. We understand the pains of traveling. Sometimes you go somewhere that other people do not want to accept you because you come from a very different, country or different background. So this is the problem. So people have to understand hospitality. You have to give what you have, and that's even it's mentioned in the Holy Quran. There are people who do give what they have, even it's the special thing that they have in their own their houses. So it doesn't matter what the person is or who from where he comes from. What matters is actually for you to make sure that you give what you have to the people to accept them. But there are people who actually do that in trying to polish their own character, trying to make sure that like the people feel like they are good, but in reality they are not good. So that's the problem. If you go to some countries, they accept people like at the airport. You find that people are, welcoming you. They give you all. But that's not a reality. The reality is when you go down to the street and then you see how people accept you, that's actually what sends the picture. If I'm a diplomat, for example, I move from here, I go to Kenya or I go to Nigeria, I'll expect the people who are there to receive me to handle me, with care. Of course, but that's not the issue. We can't, give a definition of hospitality that these people are good people in this context, because I'm supposed to be served. I'm a special guest. We are talking about when you go to a country, you go, for example, here in Egypt, you have like Ataba. Everybody who comes to Egypt, most of the people who go downtown, what's Ataba. When you go there, you see the people, how they receive you, how they talk to you, and that's actually what sends the message. So in my country in particular, Sierra Leone, I'll tell you, my country, a bit of the background actually, because the city is called Freetown. And Freetown is free, means I don't think I have much to explain about the name of the city. Because the slaves who were taken away from Africa to America and Europe with the kind of hardships, all the difficult things they faced when they were brought back to Africa, and the place that the West, like Britain, America, decided to bring them was Sierra Leone. So it happened that it was the city. When they brought them, actually the people, the inhabitants there wanted to refuse them. You understand? So they fought against them. But then the British, they used their own power and they defeated the people, who owned the land at the time. So they called the place to be Free Town. So the city is free for everyone who comes here. So that alone sends the message of our, who we are in Sierra Leone. We do accept people. If you go to Sierra Leone, I tell you this, if you go to some particular places, people like the strangers more than they do like the citizens. This is what we are. And I don't think that it's only something that is a reality in Sierra Leone. If you go to Ghana, if you go to Nigeria, if you go to Gabon, the situation is the same. People do respect strangers, and they give a lot of what they have. You will see that, for example, if you go, they have like the bed sheets. They can keep that for strangers. They give you the special bed. They give you everything special if you go to my country. And that's actually what Islam speaks about. But although they don't do this based on Islam, most of them, it's just part of the culture that you have to give what you have to the people. Yes.
And how about food-wise? What are some dishes that they prepare for their guests?
Well, in my country in particular, as well as some other countries in Sub-Sahara, the staple food is rice. And we have also what we call a cassava. Maybe it's not found in here, but many people who go to Africa, they know about this food. We have beans. So when we have a special stranger or whoever, it doesn't mean that it has to be special. If someone, like my friend there from Afghanistan, if he comes to Sierra Leone, the first thing I think about is to make sure that there is enough meat at home, there is, we have fish, we make something special, and that's how we take it. We don't welcome people giving them the food that we eat normally.
Yeah.
No, we don't do that in my country. We make sure that something is different. Maybe after a week, we go back to the normal way that we used to eat. But like if he comes from, let me say from Afghanistan or from Pakistan, when they come, we have to provide them something that is a bit familiar to what, someone can find everywhere. I mean, we get them good food or everything on it. So bit by bit, then we start to introduce to them the staple food we do have in the country. So that's how we welcome our strangers.
Sounds very interesting. I might visit Sierra Leone, inshallah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. If I can ask you, Honest, what's the Indonesian culture like when it comes to hospitality?
Yeah, first off, Indonesian culture, how Islam spread through Indonesia was basically through the Yemeni traders. And that was basically through trade. There's no wars going on, like expeditions for Islam to be spread through Indonesia. So it was pretty sure there's like the culture of Indonesia itself had some elements of Islam within it, you know. So they're really of a peaceful and friendly people. And so, like, for example, if you'd go to my house or whatnot, first off,
Is that an invitation for us? Or?
Inshallah, yeah, if you come back. It's usually, I don't know, but in my house or in Asian countries in general, generally speaking, it's all about the tea, you know. It always starts off with the tea, you know. Like, and it's usually the male of the family where they speak to the guests and whatnot, and it's usually the female that does the serving and whatnot. I don't know, it's a motherly thing or something, but that's how it is in Indonesia. That's what I see it. And there are also like pastries, like small snacks that are like pre-baked or like chips or whatnot. They're all like homemade stuff, and they're like packed in like these glass containers where they're like assorted and whatnot. So you pick and choose whatever and this and that. And yeah, they start off entertaining here and there and whatnot. And I see to that point where Ali described where how hospitality can go as well as to really burden a person, you know, as to saying like, not saying that the guests are taking advantage of you, but as to saying we're doing so much, like so much as in we're
which is a good sign.
That's a good sign. I mean, generally speaking, but like, I think the key point in that is to actually just keep it simple, as in like keeping family ties and whatnot and social ties in those hospitality like meetings and whatnot. Keeping it simple, as in like we don't need all those foods and whatnot. It's like that simple coffee break or tea, just to sit around, have a small chit chat and here and that, and it still keeps ties as well. You know, I mean those big feasts and whatnot can happen as well, but like the main element of hospitality is to get that social tie coming along. You know, so and coming back to the Indonesian culture, well, and since I was brought up in America as well, we mix a bit here and there. So like we would also have like barbecues as well, you know, like, but then we have like this kebab kind of satay, yeah, it's like skewered chicken pieces and whatnot on sticks and here and there. So and since of course you guys should know that America is like basically a melting pot of cultures basically, so it's pretty much a mix and match in between different families and whatnot. So yeah, pretty much barbecue here and there, rice here and there, and tea in the beginning.
A
so
fusion.
Yeah, it's a fusion of like multicultural stuff. Yeah.
All right. So brother, now coming to you after saying that Afghanistan is the land of hospitality, let us hear it, inshallah.
Okay. Personally, Islam is the way of life. In Islam, in Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught us how to live. Even if you're walking on the street, on the road, you must be walk on the right side of the road. Even if you're going down on the stair, you must be say Subhanallah. If you want to go up, you must be say Allahu Akbar. And also, Islam and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught us how to respect your family, how to respect our parents, and how to deal with people. And Islam also taught us that how to be an hospitable person and how to respect your guests. And personally, if my friend and my brother's friend and my father's friends, if it is female or male, no problem. If they come to our house, we call it guests. And what is our responsibility and what is our job? Our job is this, that we must be treat them with kindness and respect. With respect, we must be prepared to them a delicious food, drinks. Like in Afghanistan, when the special guests they come to our houses, and we prepare very delicious foods like rice. We called it palau, and also tarwe. Tarwe is like yogurt with water mixing, and making kebab, and kofta also. And we are not eating on the tables. We have in Afghanistan, we have a special room for guests. This is our sign that we love a guest, and we are a very hospitality people. That we have a home, and a special one room is special for
For
guests.
the guest.
And there is we are sitting in the ground, and we're eating on the ground. And in Afghani, bird also is very famous. Bird is like
Big.
one is enough for 2 or 3 guys. When I left Afghanistan, when I came to Egypt, when I saw the restaurant a bird like this, oh, I was so interested for me that but and also in Afghanistan, first of when the guests come to our house, we prepare a tea before a food. Prepare a tea, and after that we will bring foods. And also, if inshallah you guys come to Afghanistan, there is, when you get out from the airport, there is a big board written by that, welcome to the land of hospitality. And that's the sign. And this is the Afghani famous foods like palau, tarwe, and kebab, kofta. And also we are like the meats of, you are eating almost the meats of sheep and cow, like this.
All right, it's yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
He's already hungry.
Yes.
You become angry, right?
Yeah. You know, I think it's almost the same in a situation in many countries. You know, people trying. You know, in my country, we do have things kept for strangers. I mean, no matter how hard the situation is, we have something that is saved.
Like you
For
said,
strangers.
the bed sheets and different.
Yes. So we also have the same thing. So maybe Sierra Leone could be like Afghanistan, or better than Afghanistan in that in that particular preparation. But what actually is very much important in his explanation is that, and I've seen that in many countries like even Iran, people eating on the ground.
Yeah, that's exactly. And also
Yes.
Pakistan, the Pakistan people, also the Tajikistan people, in Uzbekistan,
Yes.
the Russian side, they are eating on the ground almost. But when we are sitting in the ground, we are feeling like comfortable, like comfort, and we are eating is very delicious. And when we are eating at the table, we are supposed to, like we are sitting in the car and eating very fast and go out like this. We are thinking.
How about Egypt? Do they eat on the floor or on tables?
No, actually, we don't eat on the floor for some reason. I think Egypt follows more the Western way, so we don't.
Well, it might have something to do with Egypt is in the middle of a desert and there's a lot of dust and
maybe.
sand around.
Yeah. I mean, well, Saudi Arabia is also a desert, but they tend to eat on the floor, and they use their hands as well. In Egypt, if you use your hand, people find it gross or disgusting for some
Offensive.
reason. Yeah, so we don't really do that. But I also wanted to add something about the Egyptian culture.
Sure.
And this is actually something that I don't like personally, is that hospitality in Egypt
Remember,
is...
all the cameramen are Egyptian.
Well, I had to say that. Egyptians, they're very hospitable, but sometimes their hospitality is restricted to their family members, and, the cousins and uncles. But when it comes to neighbors, for example, or strangers, we're not as hospitable, I believe myself, because from my experience and my life in Egypt, I've you would see people living in one building and like neighbors, and they would be living like 5 years, but in the same building, and they don't know one another. Or even if they know one another, no one has even thought of inviting the other, neighbor to his house. So this is a problem that I see in Egypt, we're very hospitable when it comes to uncles and aunties. We invite
When it
them
comes
like
to
every
your
Saturday,
personal
every
guests,
Friday.
but
Yeah. When it comes to strangers or maybe neighbors, we need to work on that, I believe.
but I think it might be different when you go outside of the major cities. Maybe in the villages.
In the villages, people are more generous, I believe, and they're more hospitable.
What do you think, Ismail?
Yeah, it's, that particular point is true. You know, I don't know actually how I can describe the situation, but I've experienced that, you know, with my own friends, you know, from the university. Sometimes they used to come to my house, you know, during the time of examination, and so most of them are afraid of spending time with me, even if I give them all what they need, you know, because some of them are not actually from Cairo,
Yeah.
so they come from the provinces, so which means when they come to Cairo, it's like they're strangers as me. But being that I live here in Cairo, I have a place, so I say, you guys, you are welcome to my place. But you find them that, you know, it's very difficult for them to adapt, you know. I give all what they need. I say, you are here, whatever you want to eat, eat. Whatever you want to take, it's yours, okay?
Yeah.
But they have that kind of restrictions. And the most important part that he touched is that they are not like in other places, you know. For example, you see a stranger can come to anyone, you know, like in my country. You know, you can go to anyone. If you go to a village, for example, you are from a particular region, you go to a place that you just go to anyone you want to go to. Nobody asks you, you know. Even if the husband sometimes is not at home, they can even give you, you know, permission to stay until the husband comes, and then they give you a place. But like in Egypt, I think you have to inform, you know, and it's not that normal.
Yeah.
People like going, you know, like family members, okay, that's fine. But in my country and in Africa in general, we don't have this kind of restrictions. And I'm asking myself whether are they Islamic or
is it
just part
cultural?
of their own culture. So I don't know whether he has any idea to talk about that, you know, because he's an Arab and the culture is theirs, and he may give me some kind of explanation to that.
This conversation is going amazingly good right now. It's very interesting to get pieces from every single culture here.
Okay.
But we're going to take a short break, so stay tuned and we will continue our conversation after the break. Welcome back to Let's Talk. Now, before the break, we were having a lovely conversation, and I want to continue just that. So, Abdul Hakim, if I can ask you, why is it important? And I'm starting with you because Afghanistan is the land of hospitality, so why is this important?
Because hospitality in Islam has a significant purpose in acts of virtue. And also hospitality, when the guests come to our houses, we can earn the pleasure of Allah. And that is the purpose of our life. And we are doing some actions because of the earn of the pleasure of Allah we're getting for that. When the guests they come to our houses, we are a lucky person, and we can get easily the pleasure of Allah. And in Islam, and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ also very generous to his companion and to his guests, and also a lot of people they are coming, like Arabs people, Egyptian people, Saudi peoples. They come to Afghanistan, and they are even in Afghanistan they are living nowadays. They love Afghanistan. They love the Afghani foods, the Afghani cultures, everything. Like even in Egypt, there's a lot of my Egyptian friends, and some of them from Korea, some of them from Thailand, Indonesia. When they are coming to our house, we are now in Egypt. I have a flat. I am living in a flat, and I prepare like in Afghanistan. Everything is like Afghanistan. When you come to my home, you will think that I came to Afghanistan. And you are preparing a dish like in Afghanistan that we're making in Afghanistan. When we are making, preparing a dish, foods from the guests, they are think that what a delicious foods. Even in Egypt, we are eating Afghani foods, but unfortunately, except bird, because it's very difficult. In Egypt, we cannot make it.
All right, Honest, if I can ask you, why do you think being hospitable is important?
Being hospital is important because that is part of like conduct, you know. Conduct itself, it's the Prophet ﷺ, he was sent to perfect conduct, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and being hospitable itself is showing like your
Good
best
behavior,
behavior
mhm.
towards guests, towards those that go to your house and whatnot. And being hospitable itself is saying like you try to present your best image, you know, towards the guests in treating them and spoiling them and everything. And importance, and that's also there's this I think it's a hadith or whatnot. It's about what you said in the beginning introduction.
Man kana
Kana-
yu'minu
Kana-
billahi
Kana-
wal
Kana-
akhir.
Okay, so like when you say you believe in God and believe in
The last day.
the last day,
Then you should.
Be
honor
kind.
be
honor your
hospitable,
kind, and
yeah.
like comparing those two, you know, like how honoring a guest, you know,
Is directly linked.
directly linked to
Mm.
faith, you know, that's like a big thing, you know, that really shows like the significance, you know, the whole importance
being
of
hospitable.
the whole link behind that.
Some very good points there. I want to ask you guys the same question. Why is it important? But before that, we're going to watch a short video clip, so stay tuned.
خلق حسن الضيافة, hospitality. We will learn from the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, for his companions, and from those that came after. We will learn from the Quran how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed us through the story of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam and his guests alayhim salam, how he treated them even though he did not know them, with high level of hospitality. And that is what a Muslim is and how a Muslim should be. Rasul alayhi salatu wassalam, he said in a beautiful hadith, من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليكرم ضيفه. Listen to this hadith. من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليكرم ضيفه. Anyone that believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in judgment day, then let him show hospitality to his guest. Look at this. He's connecting the belief of Allah and the belief of judgment day to be equal to showing great hospitality to your guest. Why would he emphasize such a thing if it is not big enough for us to focus on and pay attention to? Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, it is said that he is the first to ever invite guests. أول من ضيف. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that story in his glorious book when he said, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم هل أتاك حديث ضيف إبراهيم المكرمين إذ دخلوا عليه فقالوا سلاما قال سلام قوم منكرون فراغ إلى أهله فجاء بعجل سمين. To the end of the ayah. He's sitting in his house, alayhi salam. And guests, people, unknown individuals came to him. He welcomed them. They sat. What did he do first? فَرَاغَ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِهِ. Before asking them who they are, what they came for, they went straight to his family and asked him to bring a calf, and he slaughtered the calf, and he cooked the calf, and he brought it in front of them. That's called hospitality. We learn from our prophets. We don't wait until somebody asks us to feed him or her. We do it first and then we ask. We learn this from the Quran, from Kitab Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is said that some of the Israelite stories, where the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam said in the hadith, حدثوا عن بني إسرائيل ولا حرج. Talk from the stories of the people of Israel without having a problem, unless they contradict with the teaching of Allah and His Messenger. So it is said that Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, wa ala rasulina afdal salatu wassalam, used not to eat by himself. Whenever his meal will come, he will go and find someone to sit with him so they could share the food. And one day, the meal time came, and he went out looking for someone to sit with him so he would share his food with him. He found a person. He brought him in the house and they sat to eat, and he told the person, say Bismillah, Sammillah. And the man looked at the Prophet. He said, I do not know who is Allah. So Ibrahim alayhi salam got upset and told him, leave, do not eat with me. And here comes the angel Jibreel, coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, Ya Ibrahim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, I have been feeding this man all of his life, even though he's a disbeliever. Allah is saying through Jibreel alayhi salam to Ibrahim, Ya Ibrahim, Allah is telling you that He has been feeding this man all of his life, even though he was not a believer. And you couldn't feed him with one piece of food? So Ibrahim alayhi salam stood up running, trying to find the man. He found him. He brought him in. But the man refused at first. He said, why would I come and sit and eat with you when you kick me out with no reason and you bring me in with no reason? So Ibrahim alayhi salam had to explain the message that was revealed to him from his Lord. When this man heard it, he said, this is a generous God. This is a generous Lord. I bear witness that He is your Lord as He is mine. And he sat with Ibrahim and he ate with Ibrahim alayhi salam.
Welcome back to Let's Talk. That was a very good video clip. It covered most of the points that we were speaking about, and it added the beautiful story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now, before we watched that video clip, we were speaking about why being hospitable is important. So I'm gonna let my guests continue and share their thoughts with us. So if you guys can tell me, why is it important to be hospitable?
I think being hospitable is important, or the importance of being hospitable varies from person to person. You know, in general, you know, being good to people and giving and offering food and, you know, smiling at your guest is a good thing, you know, and it's part of the human instinct.
But not constantly smiling and not saying anything.
Yeah, obviously, like being nice, being giving, being generous to the people, especially your visitors and your guests, is a good thing, and it's part of the human instinct to be good. So you would find this is the normal case with most people, is to be generous and to be, you know, giving, and it feels good, you know. Even people, all the people, Muslims or non-Muslims, who you know, they're involved in charity, for example, the giving or the serving other people, they find a joy in it. Yeah. Some people like it for this reason, but the Muslim doesn't only you know, care to be hospitable because of that, but in addition he cares for hospitality because it's something that pleases Allah. So the Muslim, you know, does it because it's part of his instinct, as well as it's
part
something that Allah recommended, the Prophet ﷺ recommended, and it's something that we need to do.
Can you give me an example from the Prophet ﷺ or his companions?
Yes, definitely. You know, as I said, the Arabs used to be very generous, and one day the Prophet ﷺ had a guest. So the guest, as an Arab, as a Muslim, as a Prophet ﷺ, the best of people, he had to honor that guest and treat him. So he went to his wives and he asked them if they had any food, but all his wives didn't have any food to offer that man, and this shows how humble the Prophet ﷺ was. Anyway, so he was looking for food, but he didn't find in his houses any food for the man. So he asked the companions if anyone was interested in treating or hosting this guest. So one of the Sahaba from the Ansar, his name is Abu Talha al-Ansari. He actually stood up and told the Prophet ﷺ, I wanted to treat that guest. To host the guest. So Abu Talha al-Ansari went running back to his wife Sulaym, and he told her that there's a guest coming. Sulaym, she said, we don't have much food. We only have some food for our children, and that's it. He told her, just cook the food for the guest. I have to treat the guest of the Messenger of Allah. I have to treat him. I promised the Prophet ﷺ I have to host him, and honor him. So the man came, and Abu Talha treated him, and they offered him food. And back in the day, obviously there was no electricity, so they had the candles and lanterns, small lanterns with fire. So he served the man some food, and he turned off. He put out the fire, and the room was very dim and dark, so you can't really see properly. So and the man and his wife, Abu Talha al-Ansari and his wife, sat in a corner and pretended to be eating, because they didn't want to embarrass the guest, and they pretended to be eating, and the guest didn't notice because it was dark and dim. So the guest ate and he left, and the Prophet ﷺ, next morning, the Prophet ﷺ came to the man, and he said to him, لَقَدْ عَجِبَ اللَّهُ مِنْ صَنِيعِكُمَا. Allah found it ajib what you did. Allah marveled at what you did, at the action or the deed that you did to the man. And not just that, Allah revealed an ayah in the Quran just for your story. Then this ayah will be recited until the day of judgment. Ayah in Surah Al-Hashr. Allah says in Surah Al-Hashr, وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. And this is actually an ayah was revealed in Al-Ansar, which Abu Talha was one from. So yes, يُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ means they prefer others over themselves. The quality of ithar was one of the qualities of the believers, and especially Ansar, is selflessness and preferring and favoring others over yourself. So this is an example. So as I said, people have other different reasons for being hospitable. Some do it for the sake of Allah, others do it for the sake of just the joy of it. Some people do it because it's something that you can be proud of. Like as I mentioned, the famous Arab Hatim al-Ta'i, he used to be very generous. And actually Hatim al-Ta'i was, he died before Islam, right? But his children, they reached Islam, they heard the Messenger and saw him, and they believed in the Messenger of Allah. So his son came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, my father used to be very generous, he used to be very hospitable, he used to give away lots of food. Is any of that going to benefit him? So the Prophet ﷺ said, yes, your dad was generous and everything, but he got what he wanted. Meaning that Hatim al-Ta'i did all these things not for the sake of Allah, because he wasn't a Muslim, he wasn't believing in Allah alone. He did it for the sake of creating a name of himself, and he got that. Actually, his name is mentioned just in the show and by many people nowadays for his generosity, and he's got a legacy. But that's what he got, meaning that if you don't do it for the sake of Allah, it's not going to benefit you in
So it's
the
very
hereafter.
important to correct our intentions.
Yes, exactly. It's very important.
Ismail, if I can ask you, why do you think it's important to be hospitable?
Well, being hospitable is so important, not only for maybe the individual, because as a nation, for example, in the world today, we live as a village wherein we are all connected together. So what people should understand is when you are good to someone, you expect that someone will also be good to you. This is something that is common. And in terms of when we are talking about being generous to people, being good to people, is we are actually talking about not only within the society that you live in. For example, I'm in Sierra Leone, I'm just talking about my neighbors, because even the Holy Prophet, of course, was, said Jibril was coming to him to advise him about his neighbor, and even the Prophet thought that, as if he's going to, inherit the neighbor. So it's very much important to be good to people, not only the people that are around you, the people who come from far distances. You have to make sure that you extend some good to them, because they are in need, and that's why the Prophet said, "As-safaru juzu min al-azab." Yani, when you are traveling, even if you are rich, you can be exposed to some kind of constraints. So you need people to help you, even not giving you something, but giving you direction, helping you, maybe taking all these ways of helping people. So how much this can help us in our societies is, if we are good to people, we are confident that when we move outside, we go anywhere, we will get people helping us. This is something that is, no argument in that. So people should try to, even though it's difficult these days, some other people think that, okay, I'm not going to give what I have because this is the only thing I have. But if you believe in God, you do this in the purpose of, helping humanity.
Like in Arab culture also we choose your neighbor before choosing your residence.
Yeah.
It means that flat room is not very important. The people, they are surround you, they are living beside you.
Yes.
Is very important, because environment affected by people.
Yes.
But
point,
I agree with you.
Yes, yes, and
Exactly.
the point actually why the Prophet actually was telling people to be good to their neighbors, because if something happens, for example, everybody knows that we have in our phones, we have numbers for emergency, like for fire brigade, the police, but the first person that you can expect to come to your aid is your
neighbor, 'cause he's right
your
there.
neighbor.
Yeah.
So if you are not kind to your neighbor, if he sees that smoke is coming from the window, he knows that there is accident there, he would just say, oh, that guy is not a good person. So you have to make sure that you be good to your neighbors, you help people. And for those who travel, they have to understand this, That's why if you meet people, like if I go to Afghanistan, I will expect people who have spent time outside to be very much good, because they understand the constraints of traveling. But for those who have not traveled, even in Egypt, even in my country, they are very much different. They have some kinds of restrictions. They don't want to maybe mingle with you.
They're less
Yes.
open-minded.
Yeah. So the last thing that I would like to say to the
Quickly,
people,
'cause
to
we're out
our
of time.
audience, is that be good to your neighbors, be good to your strangers, be good, give whatever you have to people, and you will get the reward again.
Inshallah. I mean, thank you very much, Ismail. I want to thank you guys for coming in and making this episode a very joyful episode, and teaching us about your cultures and the way they treat their guests with kindness. And I want to thank you, dear viewers, for tuning in to another episode of Let's Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode and benefited from it. Don't forget to check out our website, huda.tv, also our Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/letstalkofficial. And until next time, may God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.